Nicolo Rovella. So Rovella, for those that may or may not know, on loan at Lazio, one of those players that's on one of those Italian-style 2-year loans that is now going to be made permanent from Juventus, with suggestions the fee, all the reports are around 70 million euros. So we're not talking much money. So that will come into ourselves if we are going to make the move and we think it's worthwhile. Important to say as well, known to be not the highest wages in Serie A, but this name is on the radar. There's quite a few, as we know, that have said, we're looking at Rovella. Absolutely, he's a player we scouted. We know Richard Hughes has links to the Italian market as well. Maybe the most interesting thing to say about this player, a lot of people in football compare him to Martin Zubimendi. And we all know what happened with that last summer as well. So with that, I am interested to see what do the metrics say about, I won't say kid because he's 23 years old, but a central midfielder.
I think it's important to know, start of all, he's 178 centimetres. So he's not small, but he's not, I think Grab's 181, I think. So he's a little bit, it's not far off Grab, but he's only 68k. Now I'm 68k, right? And I'm shorter than him, but I'm saying to you that to be that tall and only 68k, there's always a question mark. I think we have to put it out there, the elephant in the room. Italians coming to Premier League, right? There is always a question mark about a certain type. You have to be a physical monster, I think, to come from Italy to the UK. You have to be able to, it's a cultural, there's so many things that go against you. And straight off there, I'm like, oh, that doesn't strike me as powerhouse. All right. No, that strikes me as technical on the ball, but could be a little bit weight of thin, maybe. But I mean, not saying he couldn't get the power into him, but straight off, I'm a little bit like, okay, that's an interesting ratio. You know, not one, you know, Tonaloni at Newcastle is a clear powerhouse, been a success, that transfer, but he's built very differently to this lad. All right. So that's just to say, just putting that out there because people will be saying, oh, Italians don't travel and the rest of it. All right. So there is an element to that. If you look at his minutes for this season, we'll go into it in more detail. He's at about 2.7. So he should be clocking in just sort of 3K, to be fair to you, this season, which, as you and I have been doing this, 23 episodes now. That is a serious amount of minutes played, right? That's not a little bit in the back. I'm just trying to find some actual minutes to go through it. But yeah, so if you look here, he's gradually built up. I think in 22-23, he's buying there. So that's about 1,700. Came on the scene, played 105. All right. Then the following season played just short of 1,200. Then went up just short of 1,500. Then played just short of 1,800. Then for 23-24, dropped off a little bit. And then for this season, he's gone up back again, massively back up again. And he probably finished just sort of 12-5. Okay. So that's some progression in terms of minutes. He's shown he can do it. If he's played in Europe, that's twice a week. So that's some positives to be taken there. I would definitely look at. If you look at how's he doing XG when he's on the pitch, this season a little bit down, but he's basically neutral, right? Last season, basically neutral. Season before that, when he played less, actually at Juve, it was actually a positive impact, but he played less minutes. So yeah, take it with a pinch of salt. And seeing success this year is down on last season, almost the complete reverse. Okay, so there's some things to take into consideration there. Possession. He's on the ball, so it's about 77, just short of 80 touches a game, which is the last 2 seasons when he's been at Lazio. If you look at Kirke before, he was in around 60, so this is 10 touches more, but less in the attacking penalty box, right? Which is kind of what you expect for somebody who's just going to sit and do that. If we then roll up to defensive actions is pretty important for him. So he is blocks, challenges, and tackles in around 2 challenges, 2.5 challenges a game, 1.5. So some interesting. We'll look at those when we look at in terms of the wagon wheels. Goal creating actions. So he's on 0.08. Well, he's on nothing for this, to be fair. He's got very, very limited. Shot creating actions, though, per 90, he's at 2.3. So he has some impact, but they don't necessarily lead to a goal. That might not be his fault, right? It could be the forward in front of him not putting the chance away. If we look at passing, so what is he like? If I just get away from that before I break my screen. There we go. Pass types, he is genuinely just trying to find his through balls 2.4, which has gone up. So that is something we would try and get from our deep line play. If he's going to be a bit of a deep line playmaker, might not be. Passing generally though, so completion rate of 89. So we normally look about 85 to be our benchmark for our midfielders.
Yeah.
He's well in that. Short. So he's generally attempting mid 60s passing, 24 of that, so just short of a third are short, another third of that are medium, and then the remaining so the long is a low amount, but he mainly spends a lot of his game in the medium and short term, with good completion rates for those two. It's only a long game that drops a little bit in terms of his completion rate. So that's some things to be pleased about. We look at general stats though. Talking about non-player XG and XA together is 0.12. So I think it would be fair to say he's not a particularly creative player or a goal scorer, but he has an impact in the chain somewhere. We'll look at his XC later on when we've done the rest. If we look at the usual kind of percentiles, so this is against midfielders. The areas of defensive that are not that. I mean, errors I'd like to see a little bit higher, but it's not massively important. Blocks and clearances, okay. So blocks would be good to see in block passing lanes, but that's not like, oh my God, that's really important. Interceptions is nice. So 92% percentile, which means 92nd percentile, sorry. So he's able to nip in front and nick that ball. That's quite impressive. And tackles, that's something I would less be happy to see, because that's generally made when you haven't done another deflection action to win that ball. So something to be keep on, but he's on the 87th percentile. In terms of how does he move that ball between the boxes, as the little keys were there in the rest of it, it is through passing. He's not a carrier. I mean, he's a low. It's the 60th, 65th, and 61st percentile for progressive carries and carries. I mean, that's just that's not something he's going to be doing a lot of. Touches in the penalty box as well. He's not looking to get on there. All right. But in terms of passing, pass completion 88th percentile, and passes attempted 91st percentile. The only disappointing thing is not more of those are progressive. Okay, so it's a steady Eddie. It's a kind of a get it, play it, keep the ball ticking over, but he's not necessarily going to find that killer ball, that one in behind. And attacking wise, a shot creating action 61st percentile, as we alluded to. He's not going to give you a lot on the attacking side of things. In terms of comparison, he is going to come in as competition for Gravenberg. I think that's fair to say if he was going to come in. And this is why I've pulled him up this wagon where we're Grav. And to be honest with you, a fairly similar, yes, he's actually creating more shot creating actions and passes attempted than Grav. In terms of the rest of the metrics, Grav probably outperforms him, which, to be honest with you, is a bit of a concern, because Grav is not known for his passing, right? If you're going to marry him up or give an alternative, we like to get to that Swiss Army knife, should we say? You'd like him to be doing stuff that Grav doesn't do, as well as the defensive stuff, right? And this is a bit similar to me, but at a slightly lower level. So progressive passes are about the same. Progressive carries, we know Gravenberg likes to carry that ball. Therefore, his take-ons are better. Touches are higher for Nicolo. But in terms of the rest, you've got Grav is probably at a pretty decent level. So, there's not a massive difference between the two players. It just looks like potentially Nicolo has created slightly more shot creating actions, but that isn't necessarily something to write home about because it's only in the 61st percentile. Okay, so yeah, some things to be wary of. If you look at where does he pick the ball up for Lazio, he's in and around the central areas, which is what we want him to be doing. How much is he on the ball? He's not on the ball as much. He's probably on the ball. I mean, saying that, just compared it to a guy who's a fulcrum of attack. So he's on the ball every other minute, should we say? Taking a touch or pass every other minute, which is okay. It's just not going to give you that progression. Involved in low chains, so up to 10. And then in terms of what does he do? He's made some passes into the right half spaces, but as I said, the progressive stuff isn't really his game. All right, that's not. It's not going to be a high point of his. In terms of on the ball, so he's on the ball for just short of 13% time, 42% duel rate. And he's involved 13% of the EPV for the team, which probably to be predicted, to be fair. EPV, what does he stop? So he is stopping here 90% of the threat he faced. And what is he creating? There's only about 7% in his area. Okay, so yeah, there's some things there where that's kind of where we'd expect to look at the metrics. Things that you might not be wanting to look at though is in the area that he would be operating in. The defensive actions are quite low. That's sort of 5% there for the entire game. Either side of him are considerably more. And if you went back to just in front of the back four, okay, fair enough. That goes up to about 9%, but that's still a little bit low considering one of his main roles, I would say, in there is to win and regain possession. Okay. XG shot isn't really going to give you a lot. The final one I was going to look at was in terms of a good old number threat. So he offers 0.11 threat, which is, not surprisingly, the same as Gravenberg. So there you go. That's Rovella. I think fair to say, interesting. Could be a useful addition to the squad. My concerns would be whether he can make the transition to play in the Premier League. And he isn't too dissimilar to Grav. So that would be just the things that I would be going on if I was going to be honest with you. He's not going to close the gap in terms of threat creation.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And when you put that together, I understand why they compare Rovella with Zubamendi. Because even if you just watch his footage, especially that marries with the stats, very metronomic, as in, like you said, keeps the ball moving, wins it, like ticks the side over. A bit of passing forward, but it's not really progressive as the stats bear out. And for a guy that's in the 91st percentile for just passes attempted, to only be in the 65th percentile for progressive passes is probably quite distinct. It is sort of a sideways shift. It could do that. The one thing that you said to me here, and I think this might be a deal breaker before we get on to the value element. 179 centimeters. I just checked it there. Grav 190. So that's big. We're talking 11 centimeters there. So probably talking this guy about 5'8", 5'9", maybe 5'10" at a push for those who might jump on me for absolute metrics, but not the biggest, as you said. The kg as well. That is worth calling out because he's showing there as 68 kilograms. Grav 78. 10 kilos at elite Premier League level is massive, as we've talked about before, for just size. And I think back to another midfielder we talked about. We looked at Lamine Camara. Do you remember the Monaco boy who had a lot to like, but he was just so small and so slight? The big question is, how does that translate? So with all that in mind, I mean, fee-wise, it looks like Lazio are going to exercise an option for 17 million euros, and there's talk of a 50 million release clause, but expectations that if he was to move, and again, through various reports, mainly coming from Italy, it's around 35 to 40 million pounds. So it's not massive, massive money, but it's not chump change either in elite football terms. When you stack it all up for you, Bart, is it a case of you have to have the Italy concern because apart from the likes of Tonali, who you said, it was a different beast because of his size, engine and everything like that and his base. there's that. But the Italy, and people will reference Chiesa as a transition, the size and the physicality, and maybe just a great passer, but not a progressive passer. Does that probably steer into the mix a bit for you?
It does. I mean, I think, we were in a chat about this. I think he is a bit like Zubimendi, if I'm being honest with you. And I think we've said on this show before, I think we've moved on from the Zubimendi type, I'll be honest with you. I just think, I think if we're still looking at this type of player, having had a season in the Premier League, I'm like, there's some things to learn from being in a season in the Premier League, right? And yes, he might want more technical midfielders, okay. But there have been games where we have needed a bit more of a physical presence in there. Newcastle, West Ham, Everton, for example, or when Manchester had midfield. I'm not sure this guy helps you solve that puzzle. It clearly, we like this type of player because I think he is similar to Zubimendi. He's younger.
Yeah.
The fee's about right. For me, it's that transition from Serie A to the Premier League is never a great path. And I would be wary of whether this is the right guy to test that path again. Personally. But as we always say, it's not my money. I can see why you might like this player. But for me, the movement from Serie A to Premier League is always a bit. It's not straightforward, and I'd have a concern about that personally, as well as the physical nature of this player doesn't seem to be in the right ballpark that we would need.
You can almost see why this player is succeeding in the Italian league, but the step 100%. Over may just be that bit too much. So, liked, but it would be a bit of a surprise if Liverpool pulled the trigger on that one. We'll see what happens there.